So we're back at the Dream Factory, the House of Toys, the bike specialist. James, good to be back. Good to be...
Fantastic to be back, and our 16th episode, I believe, as well.
16?
Of greatness. I've enjoyed every single one of them, and let's review this beauty next to us, the Paul Smart.
That is a hell of a thing. And so this is a proper modern classic, really. You know, last time we rode actually Dad rode the LC350. Now we're onto a modern bike that's styled to look like a classic. Modern brakes, modern suspension. It's an air-cooled V-twin, but it's kind of a late version of it. But then in this beautiful classic styling.
And with the green frame, which looks absolutely knockout, which is a proper homage to the 1972 Paul Smart win at Imola.
Which is a hell of a track, Imola. You know, that's...
You've raced there, haven't you?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't know if you knew I used to do a little bit of racing.
Just once or twice.
Oh, I don't want to be that guy.
I think Ducati have done a fantastic job with this bike. They've done exactly what they set out to do. They've done an old school, cool, a proper bow homage to Paul Smart, to late Paul Smart, obviously sadly passed away a couple of years ago. I was talking to actually Alan, the cameraman who's filming us now. He spoke really highly of Paul Smart. Sadly, I never had the opportunity to meet him, but everyone said what a great guy he was. And Alan in particular was telling me that he's been to quite a few do's with him, and he's got a lot of time for people. I believe you've met him as well, haven't you?
Yeah, and honestly, yeah, he was, for someone who actually is such a huge person in terms of his importance in the motorcycle world, super humble, super nice, just love motorbikes and being around them.
He's actually married to Barry Sheen's sister, Maggie. Yeah, it's wow.
Legend, and a bike in his name. The thing I like the most about these is that it's not just a piece of eye candy. Yeah. It kind of hits for me the sweet spot of road bikes. I always think, it's a Chris theory of life here, but I always think 200-ish kilos, 100-ish horsepower is a great combination for a road bike. It's fast enough to get past traffic and enjoy, but not so fast that the speed dominates the whole ride.
Completely agree with you, and I think Ducati have done a fantastic job with this bike. They've done exactly that, what you're saying. It's a proper homage to Paul Smart. I love the green frame and the big flakes of silver metallic. It's like a 70s coolness with a modern vibe to it. And I've been told these bikes ride really well. Personally, I haven't ridden one. I'm looking forward to having a ride of it. And I think we're both going to be very impressed.
In that case, without any further ado, let's get this thing fired up and have some proper old school V-twin fun. A lot of the reasons you would buy a Ducati has to be the engine, has to be that big, beautiful V-twin, like the boom, the way they ride, the way they feel. If you're a Ducati person, you know, you get it. And it's something that's actually gone with the new V4s and the ultra modern stuff. They've got like a different vibe going on. This for me is a proper big V-twin Ducati. Check out the sound of it. Listen to that. This is a very special motorcycle, this, the Paul Smart 1000. And the first thing that jumped to my mind this morning when I got on it, actually the first thing was oh my god, how wide is that seat? Which is lovely when you're riding to hang off either side of, but horrible when you're trying to paddle it around a car park. Then the first thing I thought was just how taut and modern and easy to ride it felt. It looks like an old bike, but it feels modern. It's got a real pick up and go to the engine. It's quite quick. Brakes are really good. I've been pushing the brakes quite hard today, and they might not be the latest fancy radial calipers, but there's plenty of feel and power, more feel than you get on a modern ABS system for sure. And the suspension, even on these rough roads, it's firm, but it's so controlled. and it doesn't skitter off of the bumps. It works brilliantly on even these like rough skittery bumps in the corners, which lets you get on with the important thing, which is enjoying riding this bike. I know they're collectible, I know it's a iconic bike to look at, but you've got to ride it. This thing is so nice. It's a proper Ducati experience. It's long, it's got kind of lazy, stable steering, it's got a proper big booming V-twin. This is a hell of a rider's bike. I'd have no hesitation in jumping straight onto a track day on this, and I'd have the best time.
The videos we do here at Bike World, they happen because of the support and help and belief from a few companies that get behind us. B-Moto Insurance, a sponsor of the show. The thing they do really well is specialist bike insurance, which is kind of why this bike specialist thing works so well with that partnership. Any one of these specialist bikes in here, you can phone the guys at B-Moto, they'll know what you're talking about, and they'll help you get the best insurance, whether that's for looking after it when it's laid up in the living room on display, or being sent out around track days and used in the manner it should be.
Now, I don't know if this is going to sound tacky and corny and fabricated. I kind of don't care if it does. But in the same way that Paul Smart was just a properly nice bloke, this is just a properly nice bike. There's a few things I've ridden here. I've ridden a lot of different exotic bikes. I've been very fortunate to ride some incredible super bikes. Quite a lot of the time, you're riding around a bike's features, especially in these kind of high-end collectory type bikes. They're special, they're striking, they're different. Quite often they're a bit awkward in one way or another, and you spend a lot of the day trying to get the most out of it, enjoying it, but at the same time kind of just pulling back a little bit because you're waiting for it to do something odd, whether that's a fueling thing, whether that's a sharp brake or a particularly stiff, unforgiving suspension, or an engine that you're concentrating on making it work properly. There's a lot to think about. There's been a couple of bikes that have stood out as just fantastic riders' bikes. The first one that springs to mind was the Honda SP1, and the second one, without a doubt, this Ducati Paul Smart 1000. Just a brilliant thing to ride, hands down. Lovely engine, lovely chassis, lovely looks, lovely feel. Just put a huge smile on my face from the minute I rolled out of the van to the minute I reluctantly kicked the side stand down for the last time. What Ducati has done here is they've built a very styled bike. You look at the swinging arm, that big swooping profile of it. You look at this fabulous alloy front mudguard brace, the big 70s style fairing. The green frame paint, quite a bold colour choice, and obviously homage to the original bikes from the 70s, but they've made something very pretty. Who's surprised by that? Not me. But underneath all that styling, underneath all that retro flair and that kind of, remember how good we were back in the day when no one liked V-twins and we made them, they've not lost sight of what's important, is making a bike that's fun to ride and enjoyable to ride. And they really have got that right here. The engine is an absolute beaut, and it's a reasonably modern, reasonably well-mannered Ducati V-twin. It's got enough lumpy bumpiness to tell you it's got some character and it's a proper Ducati engine, but it idles properly, it starts easily, it's smooth when you want to rev the nuts off of it, it doesn't feel like it's shaking itself to pieces, it pulls cleanly all the way through the revs, you can burble right down low, it fuels properly. They've done that right. And because it's not a super stressed engine trying to make 150 horsepower, it's making a modest 92 brake out of 1000 cc. It means they're really nice horsepower. And I'd rather have, on a road bike, 92 really enjoyable horsepower than 160 that just want to break out of the engine cases at every opportunity. Moving on from that, the way the chassis works, obviously super quality Öhlins suspension, Öhlins shock on the back. Brembo brakes, it gets a little bit of a dig sometimes, this bike, for just having 2-pot sliding calipers. You know, given that it's a premium thing, you'd expect a nice big 4-pot caliper. A couple of issues there. Trying to fit a 4-pot caliper on a spoked wheel without the caliper smashing all the spokes off is, one, a tight fit, and secondly, it kind of doesn't need it. It's not super fast, it's not stupidly heavy, and these brakes were more than good enough to keep the thing standing on its nose into every corner I wanted to today. So again, maybe a nice spec item to upgrade, but they worked superbly well for the whole time I was riding today. Now, like the SP1 Honda, there's no one feature about this bike I can go, that's what makes it brilliant. All works so well together. And I found that the minute I got out onto a good road, I just didn't want to stop. I kept wanting to ride more and more corners, flow in between the bends, charging out of them with a bit of throttle, a little bit of a wheelie every now and then out of a second or sometimes a third gear with a crest. Hammer it on the brakes, it's mannered enough and modern enough that it will let you do a bit of backing in playing. Slam it on its side, fire through. I just had such a great time flowing down good roads, whether they be bumpy or smooth, tight or fast. It just handled everything in a way that a retro looking bike shouldn't, and they often don't. They often have a bit of cheaper suspension and a bit of a sort of nannied chassis to them. This thing, absolutely fantastic. I would take that on a track day tomorrow and I would have the biggest smile you've ever seen. And if you've got one of these or you're thinking of buying one, don't let me find that you've just been storing it in a living room. I will be very cross, because it's too good for that. It's too good to be an ornament. It's too good for the mantelpiece. This has such a joy to the riding experience. Cannot miss that. Don't waste it on the polishing rag. Go and ride the thing.